It was pretty early on in my photography journey that I started seeing photos from this location called Cape Disappointment State Park in southwest Washington, about 3 hours from where I live. And I started dreaming about going there myself someday. But it wasn't until January 2023 that I was able to pack up my gear, get up before dawn, and make that drive to the Washington coast. And so in this two-part video, I'm going to take you to Cape Disappointment back in 2023 for my first trip to photograph the king tides, the first of two that I've since taken. Then I'm going to break down everything that I have learned since, what conditions actually create those explosive waves, when to go, where to set up, and how to stay safe while chasing one of the wildest shows that the Pacific Northwest really does have to offer. Because the truth is that king tides don't always mean king-sized waves. But when you get that right mix of swell, tide, and weather, Cape Disappointment definitely lives up to its reputation. Two disclaimers about what you're about to see from 2023. One is that I did not get nearly enough B-roll when I was on location at Cape Disappointment State Park. Part of that is I was just learning to make videos, but the real reason is that I had just experienced 6-7 hours of the worst weather, the most extreme weather that I have ever been outside in my life. We got absolutely blasted by 50-mile-per-hour winds, sideways rain. It was unforgettable. So a lot of what you're going to see is frankly just me recovering from what I had just experienced. And that leads me to my second disclaimer. And really it's a plea for forgiveness, because I whine so much. I went back and I looked at the footage and I just can't believe how much I whined. But it's an accurate representation of that experience, my first experience at Cape Disappointment during a storm. And so I'm just going to leave it in, and then we will come back to the office here and we will talk about what I learned on that trip and a trip that I took earlier this year to Cape Disappointment.
Good morning, everyone, because I'm on my way to Cape Disappointment in Washington. It's a little over a 3-hour drive. This is my third and final attempt to photograph the king tides this year. If I can't get there or don't get any shots today, I'll have to wait till November at minimum. I think one of the things I have going for me as a landscape photographer is that I like getting up early. Something I have working against me as a landscape photographer is that I'm pretty lazy. I also don't like crowds. There are going to be a lot of photographers there today. A lot of photographers. 100 or more, I would imagine. Although they're calling for 50-mile-an-hour winds. So maybe other people will be smart and not attempt it. Through the magic of YouTube, I don't think we'll see each other between now and Cape Disappointment. This is an epic minivan conversion, because I'm going to be camping in my van tonight. Maybe I'll do an epic minivan conversion tour later so you can kind of see my setup back there. You see that? Anyway, it's pretty cool. Kate dreamed it up. So I will see you and me at Cape Disappointment State Park.
Okay, well, I don't mind telling you that that was pretty miserable. Pretty miserable. It was so cold, so much rain, and a driving rain, a sideways rain. The heaviest wind hasn't even come yet. What's frustrating to me is that I just don't see any way that any of my shots turned out. It was next to impossible to keep the front of my lens dry. Now, if you'd ask me, was it worth it? I would say 100%. 100% it was worth it. Totally. This guy came up to me and said, we looked at each other and he said, "How are you doing?" And I just said, "Making a memory." And that is what it is. It's a memory. I actually have the chance to be back here tomorrow, which I'm going to do, obviously. But, oh my goodness, that was rough. Every part of me is frozen. I have waterproof socks on. Somehow my feet are drenched. Like an idiot, I forgot my rain pants. Kate said, "Oh, you should make sure to dress for rain." Oh, there's no rain in the forecast. I said, like an idiot. I'm very cold. Okay. So I said I was wearing waterproof socks. Well, first of all, my feet are yellow. They're like yellow with cold. Can something be yellow with cold? Anyway, I could... Oh, watch this. This is going to be gross. Those socks were inside my waterproof socks. I may need some different kinds of waterproof socks. And I forgot to mention that my shoes, which I love, are waterproof too. My shoes are waterproof. My upper layer of socks are waterproof. So how did my base layer of socks get drenched? It wasn't from sweat. This is a gross out YouTube video now. Hold on. Either you're crooked or I am. I have a new personal definition of awkward. And that is a large 6'2" man trying to change out of wet jeans in the back of a minivan. I was praying that the cars next to me did not have people behind their tinted windows. I feel like I was a little bit dramatic before. There were a lot of people. It was cold and it was wet and it was windy. There was rarely any light. But what I've been wanting to do for 3 years is to come photograph king tides at Cape Disappointment. And I did that. So I'm feeling more measured. I still have lots of coffee left over from this morning. I have this theory, and I can't remember if I've shared it on this channel before, but my theory is that coffee tastes 50% better when consumed out of a thermos lid. I don't know what it is. I feel so much better. The magic of dry clothes and Pop-Tarts and thermos lid coffee. I'm going to go into Astoria. I'm going to see if they have some rain pants. And yeah, I feel better. I still don't think any of my shots turn out, though. But I have tomorrow. One more chance. I haven't looked at the forecast yet today. All right. I don't know when. I don't know what I'm doing next, where you'll see me. So I'm going to go. Bye.
As you can see, I did have a few shots that worked out, though I have spent a lot of time getting rid of water spots in Lightroom. All told, I photographed the waves for about 4 hours on day 1, from just before sunrise until just after noon. When the light did come out, I loved how it played against the dark storm clouds in the background. On day 1, I was still fixated on the obvious composition with the lighthouse. The next day, I figured out the rhythm of the waves. I learned to anticipate. I learned to hunt for compositions beyond the obvious, and saw more giant waves that were each kind of a living work of art. I closed out day 1 by going back for sunset. The tide was receding, so no explosive wave action, but I did like the subtle colors in the sky.
Well, it is only about 6:45. It's pitch black outside. I'm pretty tired. There's no kids around, nothing to do tonight. Had a little bit of dinner. And I guess that's it. I guess I'm done for the night. I think I'm going to go to sleep. I think I'll read a little bit, but I doubt it'll last more than a couple pages. It's very windy outside, too. Really not a whole lot to do, so I guess I'll just go to bed at 6:45. Whoa. I think it was a sign. One of my lights fell. It's a sign. It's literally lights out. Okay. Whoa, it's so windy.
I told you I was whiny. So I've now gone to photograph the king tides at Cape Disappointment twice. That vlog was the first one, January 2023, and then I went this last year. Something that I did not know my first time is that king tides doesn't necessarily mean king-sized waves. And it turns out that I'm not alone, because one of the park rangers at Cape Disappointment told me that a lot of photographers show up during king tides expecting massive waves, but what they get, in his words, is deep water. That's because a king tide creates extreme tidal ranges. You get higher than normal high tides and lower than normal low tides. And high tide during one of these events can cause coastal flooding. It can reshape beaches and sometimes produce, very strange and surprising scenes as the water is reaching places it normally doesn't. And so these are typically the highest astronomical tides of the year because they're caused by a perfect alignment of sun, moon, and earth. But they don't automatically mean giant waves. And so if you are hoping to photograph explosive waves at Cape Disappointment, just chasing a king tide, putting that on your calendar is not enough. The dramatic cliff smashing waves that this location is famous for depend on more than just the tide. That's actually great news because it means you don't have to wait for a king tide to shoot amazing crashing waves at Cape Disappointment. King tides can ratchet up the drama, but spectacular photos can still be made without king tides. So here are the conditions that you want to look for, whether it is king tides or not. You want to start with the swell forecast. And a swell is a series of waves generated by distant storms, often hundreds or even thousands of miles away. And these waves travel across the open ocean as smooth, like rolling energy until they reach land and then break. They turn into surf. And so what you're looking for at Cape Disappointment is a swell of at least 10 feet, but ideally 12 to 15 feet or even more. And you want that swell to be coming from a particular direction. You want it to be coming from the west or northwest because that's where Cape Disappointment is exposed. Just as important is the swell period, and this is the time between wave crests. You want to look for a swell period of at least 12 seconds or more, and longer swell periods typically carry more energy, which result in more explosive impact when the waves reach shore. Now, the app that I use for a forecast for all of this is called Surfline, and it shows swell size, swell period, swell direction. It also has other useful data like wind speed and direction. Now, tide still does matter because it affects how high the waves are going to hit and how much of the cliff is exposed. And I've had the most luck photographing within an hour of peak high tide, when the waves have the best chance of slamming higher up against the cliffs. King tides absolutely amplify this even more. But again, it's the combination of high tide and big swell that really creates the magic. Wind can make a difference too. A strong westerly wind, anywhere from 25 to 50 miles per hour, can lift the spray and add drama. On the flip side, a strong easterly wind that's heading out towards the sea can actually flatten the waves and reduce the impact. So what you're looking for is swell, tide, and to a lesser extent, wind. That's what I'm looking for in the forecast, whether it's a king tide event or not. Now, I want to offer a few other tips based on my experience at Cape Disappointment. I suggest that you arrive early. I photograph at Waikiki Beach inside Cape Disappointment State Park, and this is a small area and it draws a big crowd. On a weekend during a king tide with good swell, you might find hundreds of photographers who are already set up. And so during king tides, I try to arrive several hours before high tide. In fact, I usually camp overnight in the state park so I can just roll out of bed and head to the beach. Getting there early lets you scout your composition, it lets you stake out a good spot, and it gives you a chance to connect with other photographers. And nearly every person that I have met out there has been super friendly. In fact, I can only think of one exception. And funny enough, the worse the weather, the more we seem to bond. Sometimes I bring a low profile camping chair, though honestly, I haven't used it much because I'm usually up talking with other photographers, but it can be nice to have. Another suggestion is to watch the waves. Getting there early helps you tune into the rhythm of the waves. And I mean that in two senses. First, you're going to notice that waves come in sets. A wave set is a group of waves that arrive together, often 3 to 7 big waves, followed by smaller, weaker waves. And these sets usually arrive every few minutes, sometimes every 10 minutes or more. Watching ahead of time helps you learn this pattern, like when the next set is coming and which wave is likely to be the biggest. Second, there's another kind of rhythm that I've noticed during large swells, and this is actually really, really important because some of the most explosive wave action at Cape Disappointment isn't when a wave crashes against the cliff. It's actually when a wave rebounds off the cliff and then collides with the next incoming wave. And the result is often vertical spray, a ton of chaotic energy, and some of those wild rooster tails of water. Once you recognize this pattern, you will know exactly when to start shooting to capture all of that energy. So what's my favorite photo spot? This is going to come down to personal preference for you, but my favorite spot is at Waikiki Beach, the parking lot behind the driftwood and log wall, and specifically near the northeast corner of the parking lot. That's my go-to angle for capturing both the crashing waves with the Cape Disappointment Lighthouse in the frame. Another suggestion is to just be a good neighbor. Whether you are shoulder to shoulder with other photographers or off on your own, remember, this is a shared experience. Be courteous. Don't block someone's shot. If you can, share your view, scoot over a little bit, offer to take turns. Try not to bump their tripod. And what's nice is that if you make a few friends nearby, you might even find some folks who are willing to watch your gear if you need to make a quick trip to the bathroom. The next one isn't really a suggestion because I think of it as a no-brainer, non-negotiable, and that is to respect the power of the place. Cape Disappointment is one of the most photogenic spots on the West Coast, but it is also one of the most dangerous. Never cross the driftwood line. The first time that I went in January 2023, the tide shifted the logs and someone got badly injured. They were taken away in an ambulance. So stay back. Use your lens to get closer, not your feet. The ocean here is powerful, it's unpredictable, and it's absolutely unforgiving. In terms of gear, I would use the longest lens that you have available. I use a 100 to 400 millimeter, which gives me great reach and lets me compress the scene and isolate the drama from a safe distance. And as I look back on those images that I shared earlier, my favorite lighthouse shots were all taken between 130 millimeters and 145 millimeters. And then that 400 millimeter reach was perfect for photographing just the waves. And that's another suggestion, really. Don't just shoot the lighthouse. Like, try zooming way in on the waves if your lens has that reach. They're living sculptures. Each one is different. It's shaped by light and wind and timing. Some of the waves are very dark and ominous, while others glow emerald green, and it's like the differences are endlessly fascinating. Another suggestion is to try video in slow motion. Cape Disappointment is full of movement and energy and sound, and video brings that to life in ways that even still photographs can't. If your camera can shoot video or slow-mo, take a few clips. I wish I had done a lot more of that on my trip in January 2023. The final tip is to protect your gear. This environment can be brutal on your camera and your lenses, so come prepared. Use a weather-sealed camera if you've got one. Bring rain covers, lens cloths, microfiber towels, and if there's rain in the forecast, take it from me, wear waterproof boots and rain pants. So to wrap up, king tides don't guarantee big waves, but when the swell and the tide and the wind and the weather all align, Cape Disappointment becomes unforgettable. Plan well, show up early, stay alert, and then let the coast do what it does best, because when all of that comes together, Cape Disappointment doesn't disappoint. And I've been holding that in this entire video. That's what's really impressive, is that I have not made that dad joke until the very end. Thank you everyone for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.